I loved Resident Evil 7. With 7, Resident Evil got scary again, which was something that RE hadn't been for quite some time. Granted, it got fairly action heavy later on, but those first few hours were pants-soilingly good. That being said, I don't expect 8 to follow in the footsteps of 7, because to me, Resident Evil 8 feels like it's going to be the FPS equivalent of Resident Evil 4. That sounds amazing, because Resident Evil 4 is, well, it's one of my absolute favorite games. How much did you play it, Thani?
I played Resident Evil 4 a great deal, and I even did so on stream, but from what you've told me, not nearly as long as how much you played it, Lost.
Oh, I played it again and again and again. I have bought that game probably 5 separate occasions. I bought it once on the PlayStation, once on the GameCube. I bought it on the Wii. It had motion controls. I bought it on the PC a couple of times. So yeah, it's just that it's definitely one of my top 10 games. Memorable bosses, characters, super cool encounters. I know what you remember most about Resident Evil 4, and I want you to say it, but I'm fairly certain I know.
Oh yeah, I talk about this part literally every time that Resident Evil 4 is mentioned, because I agree, Resident Evil 4 is a really cool game. It is really fun, even though it's not necessarily a horror game. That being said, despite how actiony it is, it does decide randomly over halfway through the game to be a horror game with the regenerators. There's slight build-up, and there's just like suspiciousness and suspense. Like, it feels so weird and out of place, but I love it. I love it so much.
My favorite moments, my 2 favorite moments, is the first, area, the beginning, where you have to run into the house and then all of these crazy village people are banging on the doors, putting up ladders, trying to get you, and then you have the chainsaw dude come towards you, trying to just cut you into pieces. That part. And then there was a part a little later where you and Louise Sarah you have to fight and hold back a horde, and you're again in this small little house and you're protecting yourself. Those part of Under Siege moments is something I never really experienced before. I might have, but it was always very scripted, and obviously the second part is scripted, but in the first part you could just run around inside of the village, but you could also just move into the building and just stay there and try to hold back everybody. So it was pretty amazing. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about Resident Evil 8. Let me just set the scene for you in regards to the story, because I assume you don't really know much about it, do you?
No, not at all. And funnily enough, despite almost completing Resident Evil 7, I never actually beat it, admittedly.
Well, at least you got the spooky part done, because it does turn a little bit actiony towards the end. But let's go. Resident Evil 8. You play as Ethan Winters, who was the protagonist from Resident Evil 7. You're enjoying your life as a newly minted parent, and then boom, Chris Redfield breaks down the door to your home and shoots your wife in the face. 5 times.
Wait, what?
I counted. He shoots your wife in the face 5 times, and then he kidnaps your child and presumably sells her to super sexy big vampire lady.
Oh, so that's the plot. I mean, I understand the overkill, by the way. I mean, he wants to make sure he has a job well done. How embarrassing would it be if he failed the first couple headshots? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, to be fair, I think she was kind of a monster lady in Resident Evil 7, so overkill is better than underkill in all of these situations. And by the way, regarding that super sexy vampire lady, I don't know what the thumbnail for this video is going to be, but it's definitely going to be her on the thumbnail, because everybody's just so thirsty about that big vampire lady.
Yeah, in game and out of game, apparently.
Yeah. Also, the cover art of the game kinda seems to indicate that Chris Redfield is a werewolf now.
What?
Well, yeah, if you take a look at the cover art, it's like half his face and half the face of a wolf. So, interestingly, we don't know much about, the story. Admittedly, these things are probably set up to shock you, to create like this sense of mystery, but it's probably gonna turn out that he's maybe playing her or something like that. Of course, shooting your wife in the face is a bit of a issue, admittedly, in my theory, but we'll see. As I said in the intro though, I'm fairly certain that this game is going to be very much a Resident Evil 4 type of game. You had all of these different enemies coming towards you. You had that red barrel that just cemented it. We talked a little bit about this before we started recording. How about you just repeat the things, your thoughts on the red barrel situation, Thani?
Yeah, okay. So we were watching the trailer before we started recording, and dude, I was so engrossed in how interesting the castle looked, how like refurbished and refined it was, and nice. I was getting some Amnesia flashbacks to that, and in stark contrast, I know we saw a little bit underneath the castle, how gross that was, and the village itself full of monsters, and oh, very much I could see the Resident Evil 4 vibe on top of like mystery and intrigue, and it was very cool. And then I saw the red barrel, and I think even Ethan was perplexed because I remember in the trailer he like hesitates to look at it and then regrettably shoots it.
I mean, I don't know who played during that sequence, but he misses the first time and then he has to shoot it again. It is only barely that he has the crosshairs over it, so I think there was some hefty auto aim right there in order to help him out. But as you can see, you had like a pistol, you had a rifle, you had a shotgun, and you have a knife. So the game definitely is way more focused on combat, and when that happens, the horror aspect of it is going to be dampened a little bit, because the more you can fight back, the less spooky it's going to be. I was never very afraid, or I was never very scared of anything in the Resident Evil 4 game. I didn't have exactly the same... I thought they were cool, but I didn't have the exact same reaction to the regenerators as you did. But the game might have, sequences that focuses on, the scary, dungeony aspect of it, but it just depends on how much you are able to fight back. Oh, speaking of fighting back, those vampire ladies, they seem to be patrolling the castle, so it might be a pursuer type enemy, just like Mr. X was in Resident Evil 2, and how Nemesis wasn't in Resident Evil 3.
I was just gonna say, as soon as you said Nemesis, like I'm Mr. X, but instead thirsty bug women. Oh boy.
Oh yeah. Moving forward, we also have the inventory screen and the merchant. The merchant of Resident Evil 4 is just so iconic. I mean, I can play his voice lines in my head. I'll buy it at a high price.
What are you buying? Yeah. What are you selling?
Yeah, so that guy is just amazing. And we have another merchant. His name is the Duke, which might kind of indicate that he is, well, a duke, or he's just a large fellow. I mean, that might be it. He's just big. He's a big boy.
Large and in charge. I like how, what's the word? I like how into it he is with his work. He seems to really be enjoying it, which makes me enjoy it and want to talk to him.
Yeah, exactly. And he's gonna upgrade all our weapons. We saw he could upgrade weapons. We can probably buy new weapons, and we could buy recipes for bullets and stuff like that. So we will be able to craft and put these things into our inventory, which is another thing that makes its comeback from Resident Evil 4. I spent an embarrassing amount of time playing inventory Tetris, just lining up all of the different weapons in Resident Evil 4, making sure that, okay, the guns are on this line, and we'll have like all of the gun ammo, and then we have the submachine gun, and that's all of that's ammo, and we'll have all of the eggs and the healing items up there by the side, and they all have to be together, they all have to be grouped. I did that a lot, man.
Well, it's nice. It's really nice. What was the phrase that you just said? With Tetris, it was so good.
Inventory Tetris. Yeah.
It's so perfect.
Which I always got super surprised, or I was super surprised by the fact that they chose not to bring that further in Resident Evil 5, because Resident Evil 5, you just have this 3x3 square of 9 squares, and you can like put I don't know if you could put guns there or what you put there, but you had ammo, you had healing. There was no more Tetris involved, and I was like, why did you dumb it down? Maybe it was the developers' attempt at streamlining it, because that's a word they use: accessibility and streamlining. But no, I think they just dumbed it down?
Dumbed it down, absolutely.
That is an actual
really
word,
did.
I didn't mess up?
No, you're right. Dumbed it down. Dude, thinking about the geometry of the suitcases and like constantly getting new cases that were like slightly bigger and having just a little more room felt so great in Resident Evil 4. And then I agree, in Resident Evil 7, you have this super streamlined, dumbed down, super tiny little I don't even want it a case. Blech. I don't even want to call it a case or an inventory because it's just so bland. But that's what it is. Streamlined.
It is. I mean, it was very streamlined in... I didn't really play 6, but it was streamlined in 5, and it was streamlined in the remake too, Resident Evil 2 remake. You did have the ability to upgrade your inventory by getting more pouches, but I always loved that case, and that you could do stuff with that. And, you know, bringing it back to 8 again, just let's talk about the setting, because it really feels like we're playing Resident Evil, but it's Bloodborne.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about it like that, but that's genius, because yeah, it does. Oh my god, with the huge guy with the hammer and the run downtown. Yeah, oh yeah, I could see it now.
And I don't think you saw it, but there's a character in another trailer called, I believe his name is Heisenberg, and he looks exactly like one of the hunters. He looks like Gascoigne, but with less monster. I don't know. Does Gascoigne have like bandages around his head? I can't remember him as having bandages around his head.
Yeah, he does.
Well, less bandages on Heisenberg, but he does seem like he would fit Bloodborne to a T. It's kind of interesting that they named the game Village, because we've seen so much of the castle and the vampire ladies. Why did they name it Village? There has to be a rather large village then.
It's a good question. Resident Evil Castle also doesn't sound
Fair
very
point.
good.
But
I agree with you. There must be so much of the village to explore, and if those giant men with the hammers are like the tip of the iceberg, who knows what else is in that cursed village.
It's interesting because there's been some indication, I think it was on Steam or I don't know, some online store, that tagged the game as open world. I don't think it's going to be open world, but I think it could be kind of sort of like a Metroidvania type game. where you have very interconnected areas and that you backtrack a lot more, which could mean that the village is kind of like a hub that you come back to every now and then to maybe go to different areas. I know that from the trailers, we've seen that there are 4 houses. One is the house of Heisenberg, I believe, and one is the house of Dimitrescu, which is the name of the big, sexy vampire lady.
Okay.
Yeah. So I am wondering if that is going to have something to do with it. And you know what? There's always rivalries going around these types of houses. There's always some political shenanigans. So I'm wondering if we might be able to play some of these factions up against each other. I think that would be cool. I think definitively that sexy vampire lady is going to be bad person. But there might be ways of playing the bad people off each other. I'm really... You know what? The more that I'm talking, the more excited I'm becoming.
Honestly, dude, even if it's not like a true open world game, the more options and different little side things you can do, like perhaps playing the different houses to get, like, against each other, excuse me, I almost said together. That would be terrible. Imagine failing a side quest and they get stronger. But yeah, the more variety and interesting side quests they can put in, as well as, like, if it was a Metroidvania and you could go pretty much anywhere with a few exceptions where you were gated off because of a key item, dude, that would be really cool.
Yeah. Well, I don't have anything else to say. I think we went through it all.
I gotta admit, I forgot the vampire lady's name again because I'm focusing on her hat.
On her hat? Is that really what you focus on? Because I focus on something completely different.
Her hat is huge. I mean, her dress is nice too. Is that what you're focusing on?
Yeah, the dress. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Dimitrescu, by the way.
Hat. Dress good.
I'm saving this.
Alright, I'm going to as well.